Good morning, everybody. Thank you for giving me another opportunity to speak. My topic today is the Tao of Flexibility. Welcome to Holland. And I think it's interesting that Bill chose to talk about change because change and flexibility are so closely related and similar. The whole reason to be flexible is because, as Bill said, change is constant. It happens whether we like it or not. I remember years ago in a presentation, Derek pointed out even our own bodies, after 7 years, you have all new cells. The cells you have today 7 years ago are completely different from the ones you had 7 years ago. And so change happens. It happens physically, it happens mentally, it happens spiritually, emotionally. All of those things are constant. So I'm going to jump right into it here. So let me just hide this real quick here. Chapter 76 of the Tao Te Ching, I think it's the main chapter that really talks about flexibility, and it also talks about softness, which is interesting. I'm just going to read this really quick. While alive, the body is soft and pliant. When dead, it is hard and rigid. All living things, grass and trees, while alive, are soft and supple. When dead, become dry and brittle. Thus, that which is hard and stiff is the follower of death. That which is soft and yielding is the follower of life. Therefore, an inflexible army will not win. A strong tree will be cut down. The big and forceful occupy a lowly position, while the soft and pliant occupy a higher place. So, as always, the meaning is multi-layered. And in a physical sense, I think of when I reread this for this presentation, I thought of in college when I took anatomy and I had to memorize all those bones and bone markings, and we were fortunate enough to have an actual skeleton to look at, which is really helpful, especially with bone markings, to be able to picture them. But I remember the teacher making the point to us that, when you're doing this, you're looking at a skeleton that's dead. But in life, bones, while they do have firmness, they have to have firmness to give a structure. When a bone is alive, even something as hard as bone, is actually soft and flexible and pliable to some degree. And I remember that. And I think, first I want to talk about physical flexibility. I think we probably all remember from physical education class, the coach or the instructor, the first thing they always did was they had us do stretching exercises. I'm sure we've all sort of experienced that. And if you're an athlete or if you've ever been an athlete, you know that stretching is very important. The practice stretching makes your muscles more flexible. It increases performance by helping you to loosen up. It aids in preventing injury or harm to your body. People who don't take the time to stretch have a greater risk of doing damage to their body. And as I said, what Lao Tzu wrote is multi-layered. In one sense, this is a teaching right here. I don't think it's a teaching that any of us disagree with. It would be kind of hard to disagree with this. But there's another kind of flexibility as well, and that's cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility is the ability to shift your thinking as an adaptation to new stimuli. And change is constant, so new stimuli and new things come into play all the time. It gives you having cognitive flexibility gives you the ability to change what you are thinking about, how you are thinking about it, and ultimately what you think about it, possibly. In other words, it gives you the ability to change your mind when presented with new information. And it's funny, in this society, the idea of changing your mind often is seen as weakness. You see this in politics a lot, regardless of whether you're conservative or liberal. Someone will get attacked for, the famous phrase is, oh, look, he flip-flopped on something. And it's seen as negative, it's seen as weak. But if you think about it, someone who's willing to change their mind, who starts off one way but then absorbs new information and comes to a different understanding and is willing to change their mind, why is that a bad thing? Why is that weakness? To me, it seems like it should be a strength. It's certainly necessary for a good leader to be able to change your mind, not to be so rigid, especially in an environment that's constantly changing. And of course, too, softness is considered weak in this society. There's this idea to be hard and firm and immovable. But if you really think about it, it really takes more strength to be flexible and soft than it does to be hard. One is external, one is more internal. And so, adapting are working towards having more cognitive flexibility can be very helpful. It can help you adapt to novel scenarios and information in a rapidly changing environment. I experience this at work a lot. You know, I'm a manager, so obviously we plan things out. That's what managing is, really. It's you plan to plan, and then you try to execute the plan. But, you know, things happen that are unforeseen, that crop up, and you have to be able to adapt and be flexible. If you ever worked with someone who's inflexible, you see how it can rattle them, and it makes it hard for them. And for yourself, too. Certainly, it's hard for me as well. I'm not anywhere near as flexible as I'd like to be. But it's something I know I need to work on, and I do my best to work on it. And also, too, being cognitively inflexible, just like not stretching when you're before exercise or athletic competition or whatever, being cognitively inflexible increases the risk of damaging your relationships and even your own spirit. You know, if you have a sort of a vision of how things should go and then they don't go that way, you get upset, and that can really derail you, you know, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, even physically over time. And same thing with relationships. If you sort of have a view of how a relationship's going to go, and you can't adapt to a change. I mean, think about, you know, what Bill said about his wife in a tough working situation and having to adapt to that. It's the flexibility that allows you to recognize that, yeah, you have to be supportive for this change that the person needs to make. And it requires flexibility to do that. And if you're not flexible in cases like that, then you run the risk of damaging your relationship. So flexibility is a good thing all around. I want to tell now a personal story about flexibility to illustrate things a little bit, if I can. It has to do with my son Christopher, and that's a picture of Christopher there. He's 16 months old, and he is our second child. You know, when you have a child, you have these sort of expectations, and even after you have it, these expectations continue. You know, his sister Ellie was born 2.5 years before, and you know, it was such a joy, and she's a typical child, and she's wonderful, and you know, I had all these hopes and expectations, like you know, one day she'll win the Nobel Prize in physics, and when I found out, well, we're going to have a second child, and I thought, oh great, they can co-win it. I'm kidding, of course, but you know, I'm just sort of making the point that you have these expectations that you want to have. And so Christopher came into the world, and he had such a wonderful start. It was a completely, you know, peaceful start, just picture perfect. He was born at home in our living room. We that was intentional. We decided to get a midwife this time around, and a doula, and a birth photographer, and he just came into the world in a wonderful way. His grandmother actually caught him, and you know, for 3 days he was there at home with us, and it was just wonderful. It was just it's wonderful to see life begin in such a comfortable surrounding, and how peaceful it all was. But an unexpected snag did in fact crop up. After he was born, our midwife, who is now, in addition to being a professional to us, we're really friends with her now as well. It's so wonderful having her in our lives. But she said, you know, because normally, you know, midwives don't, they'll sort of tell you, hey, you know, you want to go see the pediatrician within about 3 days. But when Christopher was born, she said, you know, I want you to take him tomorrow. And, you know, Wendy asked her, well, why? And she said, well, you know, his ears are a little thick, and I just want them to check him out. And, you know, after that, we both sort of started looking at him and realized that, you know, even though he was doing fine, there were some telltale signs that there might be a problem. So the next morning, I took him to our pediatrician, and he looked him over and, you know, informed us that there's a possibility that he could have Down syndrome, that he didn't have all the telltale marks, but there were some markers. And so ultimately he got a blood test, and that did in fact confirm that he did indeed have Down syndrome. And, you know, when I heard this possibility, I immediately got a little depressed, and I think Wendy did too. But fortunately, you know, I snapped out of it rather quickly, and I think one of the reasons that I was able to snap out of it is because I've lost a son. And I've talked about that before, and you know, I think that allowed me to sort of accept what's going on here and to be grateful for what's going on. And there's lots to be grateful for here. One, despite having Down syndrome, Christopher didn't have any major heart problems, any major digestive problems. Yeah, he did have to go to the hospital after 3 days because he had jaundice, but I mean, that's something that you commonly see in typical children anyways. And he had a little bit of a condition called polycythemia, which is too many red blood cells. But once the doctors were able to sort of take off some of those extra blood cells, he just did fine, and came home after about a week and has been physically very healthy ever since. And as you can see from that picture, he is just a wonderful joy. And there's so many joys that have come into my life because of this diagnosis. It's an opportunity for me to practice flexibility, to be flexible. Yeah, it's not going to turn out. It's not going to turn out the way I envisioned it. Where he's going to be a typical child like Ellie. No, it's going to be a little different. There's going to be different things going on with it, and that's okay. An opportunity for me to practice flexibility. The other thing is, it's an opportunity to be grateful for my family. I always knew Wendy was a wonderful mother. I mean, I watched her raise Ellie with me for 2.5 years. She's so patient and loving and wonderful. And then when Christopher comes along, she's his greatest advocate. She learns everything she can about Down syndrome, about what we can do for him, what we should be doing. And then she teaches me, and we work on it together. And she's so wonderful. I mean, everything about her, from the fact, I always brag about the way she gave birth to both our children. I always tell people, you know what, she gave birth to both children without even a Tylenol. I mean, it's so amazing to me. Her strength, both physically and internally. She has become an expert on Down syndrome, and so much so that we've actually decided, even though he has this developmental disability, we're going to homeschool him the same way we're going to homeschool Ellie. And I'm confident we'll be able to do it because I know of how dedicated his mother is and how much she helps me be flexible and learn the things I need to learn to manage this the best that we can. And the other opportunity is we get this opportunity to meet wonderful people. We've joined these groups. One of them is in Pasadena. It's called Club 21. Just a wonderful group of people, and you meet parents of children of Down syndrome of all ages, and they share what they knew and what they learned and the mistakes that they made, and they help people like us who are just starting out. And it's so wonderful. I mean, many of them, their children are grown now and out of the house, even some of them, and yet they still take time to share their wisdom and their experience with us. And it's wonderful. And we, in turn, even though we were only 16 months into this thing, we've met people who are, a few months behind us, and we've been able to try to help them in any way we can. So it perpetuates, and it's a wonderful thing. And so, so we've met all kinds of people, like wonderful therapists, other parents, and of course, other children. And it's been just an absolutely wonderful adventure, and one where, when you're flexible, life is going to throw things at you that are unexpected. So when you're flexible and you can adapt to it, you can make the best of it, and it enriches your life. So I'm going to start to sum it up here. Being physically flexible is a good thing, e.g., stretching out your body before physical activity. It helps prevent injury. It's a good thing to do. I don't think anyone disagrees. But being mentally flexible is good too, and there are benefits for stretching out your mind as well, whether that's adapting to changes in the workplace or adapting to changes in your family or changes maybe even where you live. That can be a real stressful change, but being cognitively flexible can help you do that. Life will naturally throw a few surprises at you. Being flexible will allow you to enjoy your life more and live it with a revitalized energy that will help you overcome those unexpected difficulties. That's true. It's okay to be soft and flexible. You don't have to listen to the message that we hear from society that you should be firm and rigid and strong, because real strength is about being soft and flexible, really. It may be counterintuitive to think that way, but I absolutely believe it's true. And 4, working to be flexible will allow you to accept the way things are and to be grateful for what you actually have and not what you thought you were going to have. And to illustrate this last point, I want to just end with this. Now that I'm in the club, so to speak, of parents who have children with developmental disabilities, one thing they'll always ask you is, hey, have you heard that piece on Holland? And it's like, oh yeah, well, we've read that. We read that, I think, the first week. And so I'm just going to read this because it's so wonderful. It's called Welcome to Holland by Emily Pearl Kingsley. I am often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it, to imagine how it would feel. It's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and make wonderful plans. The Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The stewardess comes in and says, welcome to Holland. Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy new guidebooks, and you must learn a whole new language. And you will meet a whole new group of people you never would have met. And it's a different place. It's a slower pace than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there a while and you catch your breath, you look around and you begin to notice Holland has windmills. Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy, and they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they had there. And for the rest of your life, you will say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. And the pain of that will never, ever, ever go away, because the loss of that dream is a very, very significant loss. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't get to go to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special, the very lovely things about Holland. And I can say, having lived in Holland figuratively for about 16 months now, I can't imagine my life any other way. So there it is, the Tao of Flexibility. Welcome to Holland. Thank you all so much for listening to me today. It was wonderful speaking with you. I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.
Alex, thank you so much. Well, my Sunday has brightened considerably from having heard this presentation, and you've also instilled in me this unquenchable desire to visit Holland. Also like to say that flexibility is such a timely topic today. You are absolutely correct, Alex. There are so many people who equate being tough with strength. Look at him. He's so tough. He never bends. He takes a stand, and you can't move him. Stuff like that. I think that the talking about the strength, the deceptive hidden strength of flexibility is so timely now, especially in view of the fact that the Olympic Summer Games have begun, and I know many people, including myself, are looking forward to seeing the gymnastics competition, among others. These gymnasts, pound for pound, are some of the strongest athletes in the world. What they can do in proportion to their size is astonishing. So I think they are a good example to show that the soft and flexible are not necessarily weak. So as we watch the Olympic Games, I hope we all keep in mind that there is tremendous power in being soft and flexible. That is the Tao. And Alex, some feedback for you from Feng. Thank you, Alex, for sharing your inspiring story. From Tim, beautiful presentation, Alex. And I absolutely agree with Tim. I think it's quickly becoming my favorite. For Martin, thank you, Alex, for this very honest and personal talk.